Velvet Buzzsaw is a horror film about the world of high art. It's filled with pretentious art dealers, art critics, curators, agents. They are the people most people love to laugh about, who can look at a white canvas and derive incredible meaning from it. Though most of the art pieces in this film aren't white canvases, they're actually really interesting. I enjoyed this movie because it's so different, the dialogue is really snappy, and there are some really nuanced themes if you look closely. The irony does not escape me that I might be doing the very thing this director hates by overanalyzing it, but let's talk about it. First, I need to put on my critique glasses. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Morph, an art critic, actually the art critic. He can make or break your career, and ultimately he determines the value of your painting with a good or bad article. He starts a relationship with an agent called Josefina. Josefina is struggling to find success as she works for a very ruthless gallery owner named Redora. Josefina finds a dead man in her apartment complex, and it's revealed he was a very prolific painter, over 1,000 pieces. The paintings are dark and filled with suffering, and they are mesmerizing to anyone and everyone who lays their eyes on it. Despite explicit instructions left by Dees to destroy the paintings, Josefina takes them for herself, saying she found them in the garbage. Dees' art is then unleashed upon the world as the next big thing. Redora, who's taken it upon herself to manage these paintings, keeps most of the art hidden, increasing the rarity and value of the pieces she chooses to display. After one of her workers dies in a very mysterious way transporting the art, Morph begins researching into the history of the artist Dees and discovers a very violent and troubled childhood. The painting imbued with Dees' spirit begins killing everyone involved in the displaying and selling of his paintings. And that's it. It's a pretty straightforward horror once the killing starts. So what's it all about? I would say it's about mainly the puerility and artlessness of it all. The value of each piece is determined by a group of non-artists making behind-the-scene deals with each other, using big, complicated words to imbue more meaning and value in a piece, leaving the audience baffled, but equally intrigued by the question, how do we judge the true worth of someone's art? This film is art judging art, trying to tell us that maybe we should be less judgy. In the end, Dees' works get sold off on the street for $5, whereas it was previously going for 7 figures. All the while, we are viewing these characters talk about art in a film that will divide audiences into camps. One side believing this film to have artistic merit, to be a work of art. Another group may be deciding it's frivolous and lacking in real depth. There are so many creative camera angles, interesting characters, and juicy, pretentious dialogue. I personally think it's quite impressive, because while the characters are unaware of how silly they sound, our artist-director Dan Gilroy obviously knows because he wrote these words, and he punishes all of them for it. I suspect, and this is just my suspicion, Dan Gilroy found incredible critical acclaim in his directorial debut, Nightcrawler, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Personally, one of the freshest tomatoes of a movie I've seen. It also made $50 million against an $8.5 million budget, a great financial success as well. And all of this success probably filled him with a sense of confidence and validation. His follow-up directing piece was Roman J. Israel, at 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it didn't even make back its budget at box office. I can't imagine what it must feel like to make a hit, a critical and public darling, and then make something that was panned by half of the critical population, and also making very little money. It might prompt a director to re-examine his own feelings towards this culture of judgment and assigning value after something he worked really hard on just wasn't appreciated. And maybe that's why we have Velvet Buzzsaw, 70% on Rotten Tomatoes as I record this, which seems acceptable. Now back to the movie. Dees lost his mother and his siblings in a fire. He was abused by his father. He spends 20 years in an insane asylum and ends up painting most of these pieces in his own blood. And that's the main clue. These paintings are probably haunted. For future reference, don't buy art made in blood. The art was his therapy and his personal way of dealing with trauma. It's arguably some of the truest, most authentic work we see in this film because it's not meant for a gallery, nor was it corrupted by someone trying to value it. Everyone in this art world is complicit in taking advantage of this sick and dead man. He didn't want it to be out there, but for the sake of money and prestige and everything else that goes with it, this is the definition of blood art, like blood diamonds, profiting off the pain of others, profiting off the pain of D's. And then we think about Van Gogh, Francisco de Goya, and even Kurt Cobain. We want to believe they could have been just as amazing if they were healthy, but deep down, we have the hunch that their genius couldn't exist without the tremendous turmoil they were experiencing. Towards the end, when Redora decides to get rid of the D's paintings, Josefina screams, "Art is meant to be seen." It's played as if she's crazy, that we should disagree, but we don't see a viable alternative. Damrish is the one artist that represents the alternative since he walks away from the gallery world, intending to stick with his collective. But even he had previously signed the contract and literally slept with Josefina, who is a part of that system. He's also still going to share his work through the collective, though probably for a lot less money. It might seem like Damrish survives the ordeal, but none of the artists were ever in danger. It was only the agents, the curators, the critics, the gallery owners. Director Dan Gilroy is unwilling to put the artists in danger, because he in real life is the artist. This film is his fantasy of murdering everyone who's judged his work, saw it only with money signs in their eyes, or treated it with frivolity. In doing so, he's made quite a frenetic and beautiful statement in the form of a film that I think Netflix definitely will agree to purchase his follow-up for a handsome sum. The final scene over the credits is John Malkovich's character just drawing lines and circles in the sand. This man is the only person creating truly for himself, as the waves are destined to come and wash away any proof of his work. And he seems content. Or does he seem a little mad? I can't tell the difference. Thank you all for watching. I wanted to seem a little bit more stuck up in the spirit of this film. What did you think of Velvet Buzzsaw? Do you think great art is enhanced by madness or it's a hindrance?